and say a few things about the Brisbane Stoics first. Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. Hi, everyone. My name's Travis. I'm a member of the Brisbane Stoics community, and I do give some of the presentations from time to time. So thanks, Courtney, for inviting me to speak a bit about the community, how the Brisbane Stoics works, because that has led into a lot of the work that Courtney's done around the Procton project, which she'll speak about after this. So unlike Phil Yanov, I actually can't remember how I got into Stoicism. One of those common ideas around travelling, find yourself, thinking about different values and duties. So when I returned to Brisbane, I did go down the YouTube algorithm. It did its thing, Stoicism did pop up. I am a millennial, so plenty of productivity porn and hustle culture coming up as well. So I did go into some of the introductions to Stoicism, and I was linked into more videos and articles, and that led me to see if any in-person events actually existed in Brisbane. So it turns out there did, and there's a group called the Brisbane Stoics, and they met on the second Sunday of every month. So my first meeting was on the 21st of March in 2021. And it was great. It was people there that you could connect with, talk to about some of these concepts in person. So I returned month after month to listen, and for me it was a really interesting event to attend. So the Brisbane Stoics saw increasing turnout and popularity as the years went on, and we were able to see a natural community form. Yes, we attend to listen and engage in our Stoic-related or inspired content, but we also come to continue the conversation with the fellow members from previous meetups. So that's the real power of the community. So we can get there early, we can stay afterwards for a coffee and lunch, and it allows us to pick up and continue the threads of conversations from previous meetings. We can talk about how the meeting at work went. Were there any extra thoughts on that trip that person was thinking about? And how were you able to apply Stoicism last month, and what observations did you have? As time progressed, more people got involved in presenting and discussing their ideas. So we've had lots of interesting topics that have been covered by our members, both from the theoretical to the practical, thinking about the idea of an embedded organism that's part of the cosmos, looking at what is the role of community and how can we use this as living in accordance with nature, through to what are some different journal ideas and prompts that we can use. So our topics have always got a lot of good member participation, with a range of different thoughts and perspectives. Our small group discussions are always lively when we look at the meaning behind a letter or a discourse, or think about the modern day application to some of these topics and concepts. A recurring question, such as how has Stoicism recently helped you, or what impressions did you actively think about and assent to, can generate a lot of thoughts. We talk and discuss these concepts in our formalised setting, and then we have lunch and coffee later to continue the conversation, and we've seen natural friendships emerge from this. So natural friendships have been formed, and it's been a place for people to navigate many of life's biggest challenges. We talk about and have experienced things from marriage, parenthood, divorce, career change, illnesses, and tragedy. It's been a space to listen, support, and where needed, talk about and apply the philosophical principles that we gather to talk and learn more about each month. We do look at the traditional elements of Stoicism and how we can live and apply this philosophy as a way of life. We can look at the theory, link in the logic, ethics and physics, and the practical application. This includes, as part of living out this philosophy, being embedded with others and therefore being a part of a community. So this is a natural product of coming together. We see this natural care of others play out. And this shows the linked theory of Stoicism. We have our logic with the arguments and ideas that we put forward. And if we look at physics, we can reflect on the cosmic universe, our place within it, and being co-citizens. Ethics comes in with the roles that we play, how we interact, and how we show care towards others and ourselves. We can discuss how to express virtue through involvement in family and community life. because is this not part of oikiosis? We're looking at the care of the self and care of others. So if we are a part of the cosmos and the city, is it not natural for us as living beings want to be part of groups and associate with them? So as a rational being, we have these groups where we can support each other and help provide that care for the soul. So we're supporting each other in our pursuit of virtue, in the good, and increasing our own knowledge and understanding of how to live an excellent life. So this means we can take the perspective and ideas of people we have grown to value and trust, and who are aligned with living out the same philosophy as us. So earlier I mentioned I first started attending the Brisbane Stoics, so I thought it was a really fun and cool event to attend. And that's what it was to me initially, an event. A great way to spend a Sunday morning. But as I started thinking more about these principles and coming to the conclusion that we really should devote ourselves to a philosophy as a way of life, it has become more than an event. It's become a space where we can learn how to live a life of virtue with others, to help us understand these concepts, debate them, and encourage the application to our lives. So it has caused me to step up in a lot of other roles as well. We've also seen a lot of other groups pop up as a result. There's a book club that meets on Zoom, and there's also been a social geeks group starting that can connect other interests outside of Stoicism, so people meet regularly to walk, play soccer, and have some board games. So community groups exist for a number of different reasons and purposes, and they blend together and evolve over time. So it can start as a place for people with a shared interest in Stoicism, for example, together. So we can draw upon these experiences and discuss ideas, connect afterwards, and form friendships. So it's allowed us to experience events together, help each other out, and show care and support. So it's been really cool to see naturally the space has become more than just a place to discuss a shared concept of ideas. It's been a place where we've been able to form some friendships as well. So thanks, Courtney.
Thank you, Travis. I'll just open this one up. Oh, yep, that's one. Did I click the right button? It looks good here. Cool. Right, yeah, Brisbane Stoics. Thanks, Travis. That's what you were talking about. I thought Mitchell was talking about being a 4 out of 10. I'd say I'm probably a 5. Some of you guys have a lot of practice speaking to audiences. I tend to stick to my little family at the Brisbane Stoics, so we'll see how I go. And to help me relax, I like to kind of play around with some Stoic jokes. Make them up, like Damien Chef. I think that's awesome. That's right up my alley. So here's one. I used to practice the view from above until I realised that I was looking down on people. A Stoic and an Epicurean walked into a bar. The Epicurean was greatly disturbed. The Stoic bruised a rib, nothing more. Right, okay. So maybe a little bit about me too. So I studied psychology like 20-something years ago and didn't really rush into it because of a bit of an imposter syndrome probably. And eventually, as I got older, I did a master's in counselling and psychotherapy. So my interest in philosophy has been a live one through that period, and I was always attracted to Socrates' determinism to serve the gods first. And so even though I had studied things like cognitive behavioural therapy and other psychological practices, I was quite interested in trying to preserve my understanding of Stoic philosophy first, and then wondering what would happen if I tried to apply psychological techniques on top of that. Because often I think it's the other way around, which is fine. But I have to say I work in a drug and alcohol place, and I'm not really completely able to apply a lot of these philosophical ideas in that location regulation, but in the Brisbane Stoics, it's been a place where I've been able to experiment with some of the more psychologically informed ideas. Okay, so there's me. So today then I want to share with you what I call the Practising project. It grew out, it's a group therapy basically that I've developed that integrates Stoic and Socratic philosophy into modern psychotherapeutic practice. And this project began in dialogue with members of the Brisbane Stoic community and has since evolved into a structured therapeutic model. At its heart, it aims to help clients cultivate well-doing. You pertain, thanks to Judith for pointing out that connection to me some time ago. And it works by doing, this well-being is done by developing the person's rational capacities. So well-being is discussed by Socrates, especially in the Euthydemus, and seems to be a better candidate for me for well-being, given its relation to virtue. So, why Stoicism? A distinctive worldview? Well, Stoicism offers more than techniques for emotional regulation. It presents a worldview that sees the self, others, and the cosmos as living parts of the whole. Hopefully you can read that all right. So Marcus reminds us to keep in mind the nature of things at all times. The Stoics taught that the cosmos is composed of matter, shaped and transformed by a creative divine principle. Everything exists in relation to everything else as part of an ongoing process of becoming. So this vision may not resemble a Newtonian or mechanistic universe. Instead, it offers a foundation for psychological health, a sense of belonging within an intelligent living cosmos. As Marx writes in his Meditations, the world is change, life is judgment. So students of Stoicism believed that the cosmos is alive and intelligent, maybe benevolent, definitely not inimical. We are conceived of as parts of a whole. It is as if we are organisms living within a larger organism that is capable of growth, motion, and evolution, and with motivations towards its enhancement. So the Practising project is therefore structured around a few themes that speak to the conditions imposed upon us as parts of this living cosmos. So, first theme, embedded. What is good for the whole is good for me. Focusing on reintroducing the particularly Socratic moral conversation, discussions and reflections that emphasize social harmony, duty and responsibility in relationships. When living rationally, we are obedient to the will of the guardian spirit which Zeus has granted each of us as a portion of his own being to serve as our overseer and guide, and this guardian spirit is the mind and reason for each of us. The idea being, we each share in a part of Zeus, so we have shared kindred minds, and which are a trace of the whole. So our bodies grow out of the earth, and as bodies we are part of the causal rhythm of nature. So if plants and our bodies are so intimately linked to the world and its rhythms, won't the same be true of our minds, only more so? Asked Epictetus. And of course, Pantarei, everything flows. The basis for the idea that the cosmos is not a static being composed of stable objects, but rather a constant process of becoming. So these themes recognize that knowledge of the conditions set for us by reality prepare us for making appropriate judgments, which is synonymous with living according to nature, which I take to be the precondition of the healthy psyche. Okay, but there's a few challenges, right? Everyone's aware of? So in developing this model, these are the kind of challenges that I kind of kept bumping up against, I think. So some people think that Stoic physics is unscientific. I've got to say, that doesn't really concern me particularly. But my question is it conducive towards shaping a healthy, well-adjusted human being? In this sense, one can approach such a question as a pragmatist, if they like. There's William James. There's also the problem of normativity. So due to their concern with eudaimonia and virtue, the Stoics are prescriptive. Stoicism tells us what we ought to pursue. Modern therapy, by contrast, typically avoids, at least explicitly, telling clients what is good for them. But one solution to this is to ground the Prokopton project in the organismic metaphor, I think, and also to present it as a type of bibliotherapy. So where in this case, the study of relevant texts facilitated with Socratic dialogue aid the Prokopton in the discovery of useful insights. Another problem, the Cartesian inheritance. So you could argue that contemporary psychology often assumes a split between mind and body, or self and others. Stoicism offers a corrective. It situates us as embodied social beings embedded in a living cosmos. This reorientation can be challenging, but also deeply therapeutic. Okay. So we can apply a process view and the organism metaphor. So to address these challenges, I, like I say, ground the theory in the metaphor of the organism. And Diogenes Laertius, reporting on the Stoic theory of self-selection there, says that they say that the animal's first or primary impulse is to preserve itself because nature made it congenial to itself from the beginning, as Chrysippus says in Book 1 on Goals, stating that for every animal, its first sense of congeniality is towards to its own constitution and the reflective awareness of this. For in this way, because nature has made the animal congenial to itself, it repels injurious influences and pursues that which is congenial to it. When in the case of animals, impulse is added, which they use in pursuit of things to which they have an affinity, then for them what is natural is governed by what is according to impulse. When reason has been given to rational animals as the more perfect governor of life, then for them the life according to reason properly becomes what is natural for them. For reason supervenes on impulse as a craftsman. It's from Diogenes Laertius. And I think just gives a really wonderful naturalistic view of what the organism is and how it selects itself and comes out of the environment, equipped by nature to do so. And we see the same sort of sentiment, I think, in Carl Rogers, who was a famous psychologist. The human organism is active, actualizing, and directional. This is the basis for all my thinking. So where Rogers emphasizes trusting the organism striving, the Stoics add the role of knowledge. Knowledge of what we are, what the cosmos is, and the proper relation between these things. Thus, Stoic therapy will involve the Prokopton's revisioning of themselves, not as isolated minds, but as rational organisms, striving, embodied, relational, and capable of growth. So Stoic therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy, pays close attention to beliefs. In narrative therapy, they have their own version of unhelpful beliefs, which they call restraints. If you want to follow it up, it comes out of cybernetic theory. In short, rather than looking for a cause that explains the absence of the appropriate and desired behavior and potentially mitigating responsibility, the restraint is seen as a belief condition that acts as a negative cause, preventing the person from accessing what they in fact desire for themselves. For example, their preferred ethical life. The view of restraint fits well with Stoic Socratic thinking about the good, with them believing, of course, that no one chooses evil willingly, that we act wrongly out of ignorance. So based on my understanding of the Stoic Socratic physics and ethical principles, I've tended to propose these general categories of restraints that the Prokopton is invited to explore. I take it that these restraints are common views about being in the world that cause problems for the organism's flourishing. And when you read your Stoic texts, you'll become quite familiar with these themes. That objects can make us do well, that pleasure is inherently good and discomfort evil, that our well-doing is ultimately independent of others' well-doing, that the world is static rather than a constant process of transformation, that we should always get what we want, that our character is independent of the view we take of things and our use of things, that we are unaware of our organismic and rational capacities and ongoing tendency towards enhancement. The idea there, of course, is that these ideas, which are deeply imprinted in us in the society, for whatever reason, they tend to restrain us from our natural momentum towards the good. And that pedagogically one could learn, study, practice kinds of knowledges in order to learn how to reorient their particular belief systems to what I would consider is a more healthy and stoic perspective. Okay, so just a little bit about the structure of the group therapy program. The group approach has elements of bibliotherapy, reflecting on Stoic texts and Socratic dialogue and unpacking these themes through dialectical discussion. It introduces Stoic themes in accessible language and explores them through compatible psychological exercises. The dialectical approach is shared moral conversation, reintroducing and elevating in importance the Socratic moral conversation, encouraging the internalization of dialectic and ongoing inner conversation, which I think is an interesting principle. I think I noticed quite strongly in Pierre Hadot's work, he talked about maybe the dialectic for Socrates is between people, but particularly with the Stoics, it kind of gets internalized so that it's almost as if the impressions of the world are saying certain things to you about, I am good, you know, or I am bad, and it creates a kind of internal conversation in which one tests the impression. And practical exercises, adapted from cognitive behavioural therapy, thought records, for example, focusing on identifying disturbances and tracing them to restraining beliefs, and practicing what the Stoics call prosoche. These become a key focus for shared exploration and experiential learning in the group setting. So here's an example of one of the earlier, I call them ascent records, where from an organismic point of view, trying to get people to tune into the idea of somatic states, somatic disturbances. The Stoics talk about physical disturbances as being synonymous with as mental disturbances as well, passionate movements. And it gives them a kind of rubric in which they can start to notice changes within themselves. That starts early on. This kind of typical sort of view that you find in cognitive behavioural therapy, but kind of adapted here to suit more of a philosophical language. And we kind of end up in the final ascent record, thought record, with a much more fleshed out and kind of philosophically descriptive kind of account of their experience that they would write down at the end of the day, for example. So you'll notice here, if you're a consumer of psychological literature, that one there fairly closely resembles Giovanni Faber's well-being therapy. I was kind of inspired by that as well as a kind of element that should go into this sort of design. So the participants, the Precoptons, learn to identify moments of disturbance, as I said, both somatic and affective, and gradually cultivate awareness of the beliefs behind them. They then practice acts of resistance against their beliefs, these false beliefs, clearing away restraints to the actualization of the preferred life they have propagated. I see this process as the concrete realization of the capacities of the organism, which I take to be a process towards virtue, the sole good of Stoic practice. So in my experience, these groups foster a sense of growth and feelings of support and connections with others in the Stoic community we're building. The conversations help participants articulate what their preferred ethical life would look like, and provide resources for resisting ignorance and therefore building wisdom. Crucially, participants begin to see care for self and care for others, not as opposing agendas, but instead as two sides of the same coin. Given the Stoic emphasis on knowing what we are and our relation to other bodies, we can see this as an interpretation of the maxim, to know thyself. So even beyond sessions, participants continue the dialectic, hopefully, examining impressions, expanding their capacities, and deepening their knowledge. So obviously there's a lot more that could be said on this topic, but let me close by saying that the Prokopton project shows that Stoic and Socratic philosophy can be more than just academic interest. It can serve as a structure for innovative and practical therapeutic methods that offer a radical re-seeing of the world and our place in it. By reframing participants as organisms embedded in a living cosmos, therapy fosters rational growth, resilience, and virtue. In short, Stoicism is not just about coping, it is about cultivating flourishing. Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. That was absolutely wonderful. I wonder, has anyone got any questions? Actually, let me just check how we're going for time. We're perfect. So there's a few minutes for questions. If anyone would like to ask Courtney any questions?
I'm curious about whether Courtney used his the Brisbane Stoic group as guinea pigs. So were you using this Prokopton?
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. But like Travis was saying, people use the Brisbane Stoics as ways of exploring social interaction in all sorts of ways and providing support in all kinds of really novel ways. And I see these ideas of having caring, loving groups of people that come together as opportunities to practice care in whatever form that might look like. And I hope more people go out there and start groups like that too, and test ideas that, like I know Peter yourself, you're in the helping profession, so yeah, I think for those of us who are educated in that way, we should be able, hopefully, I think, be able to kind of offer some special kind of support and help other people to develop those skills themselves within a Stoic context. Yeah, thanks.
I got one. Maybe it's just a clarification. On your second last slide there, you had a note saying, so the positive active resistance of restraints.
Yeah.
To me, that sounds like you're saying it's not, it's not about saying, it's not about forbearance as in, I'm not going to do this. It's about, as in, to resist the restraint of, that objects or stuff can make your life better. So a resistance to that restraint would be, instead of just saying, I'm not going to buy crap from Kmart when I'm feeling sad, that's kind of just saying you're not going to do something. And a positive act would be something different to that.
I guess it's because they see restraints as in a negative causal way. So you would naturally move towards the good if you didn't have that restraint in your life. So the idea, a bit like, everyone's read Camus, obviously. So I think it ends with the phrase that we have to imagine Sisyphus happy, right? And that's his act of resistance, is that there are things that we can do in our lives to reclaim our happiness, and that's kind of the theory behind acts of restraint. In a sense, from an organismic point of view, when you resist, show a heroic act of resistance against a restraining belief in your life, you enhance your organism. You become more autonomous, for example. You expose yourself to challenges in the world and develop competency as a result, for example. yeah, there's a lot of different theories going on in the background. But they use this theory of restraint and acts of resistance in domestic violence, men's behaviour change programs too. Because a lot of men will say, for example, that they love their families and they definitely don't want to hurt their families. So it's about identifying the restraints that are stopping them from doing that, and then giving men the power not to mitigate their responsibility, but to reclaim their responsibility. And I think Stoicism, let's talk about knowing what's in your power, what belongs to you, is specifically pointing towards actualizing our own capacities that were given to us by nature.
Thanks.
Thanks. Let's thank Courtney once again.